Clocks are the same, 1 o'clock. And I want to welcome everyone to the November board meeting. This is Native American month, so I get to enjoy this all month long. We will have powwows and get-togethers on the reservation here, and so excited. I want to thank you all and acknowledge that we are on the Confederate Tribes of the Colville Reservation, ceded and unceded lands. And at this time, I'll go ahead and talk about Zoom etiquette. Looks like we're pretty good about leaving our cameras on these days. Grand Coulee is where I'm sitting, right next to a hydroelectric dam, and our power keeps flickering on and off. So if I do suddenly go black, John will, take over. So if anyone feels that there is a conflict of interest that goes on during the presentations, please acknowledge that. You can do that either in the chat or stop us and let us know if you're feeling like you may need to disclose something. But at this time, I'll go ahead and do roll call. And I lost track of who else here, so I may call out someone who's not present, and we'll just wait a moment. Carlene Anders. Okay, Dell Anderson. Manuel is out, correct? Did he already confirm he will not be here? Okay. Ray Eichmeyer. Thank you.
Here.
Linda McKay. I saw her.
Here.
Yay. Rosalinda Kibbe.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Senator Warnick, I believe, will not be making it either. So, Dr. Tuggy.
Yes, I'm here.
Maddie Osborne.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Teresa Atkinson.
Sure.
And Nancy Spurgeon.
Here.
And Peter Morgan.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. No Dell Anderson or Carlene Anders. We will watch for them. They may be just a little late. Now, there's also an opportunity for public comment. We have some guests and visitors. If anyone has anything that they would like to shout out at this time, we will have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Sometimes while things are occurring during the day, we will think of something to add. So I offer that to you. Everyone has on pages 1 through 12, the consent agenda. Includes agenda, acronyms, the minutes from the August 7th meeting, the minutes from the October 6th meeting, and the monthly financial report. So I'm going to give everyone a moment to look at that, since there are two different monthly minutes attached. Thank you, Jean. Yes, all of the guests, if you can type in your name and organization for the minutes, that would be great. We had such a great time at the Colville Tribe. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves that was present. Their land acknowledgement was much better than mine, as tribal council would. At this time, if there's anyone who feels comfortable enough to motion to approve consent agenda.
I so move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Peter.
I can second.
So we have a motion and a second. Anyone have any questions? Any follow-up questions on this? And hearing none, I'll go ahead and ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed would be nay. Abstain. And we have acknowledged our absentees. So motion carried. Thank you. I turn it over now to John for the update, Executive Director update.
All right, good afternoon, all. Today I'm going to be providing a brief update. We have a full agenda today with Tom Dingus from DZA coming to present the audit, us sharing some key priorities for 2024, as well as our draft budget for 2024, as well, including after that, we'll have Linda share our slate of officers and board members, and then we get a wrap up today with having Wenatchee Tread come present on the work that they have been doing in association with Thriving Natural Worlds. But one thing I want to call out that's just in your board packet is you'll find the 2023 highlights and accomplishments for Thriving Together NCW. If for those of you who were at the board retreat, you were able to see us give a presentation on some of the key things that we've done throughout the year. And all I can say is it's really been an amazing year of growth, amazing year of building partnerships, especially with community-based organizations and nonprofits. And our staff has done a phenomenal job. So if you haven't had a chance to look through any of those highlights, I encourage you to spend time to read through those. If there's anything that piques your interest in learning more, we have a wonderful team here who would be happy to explain a little bit more detail to any of you about some of the amazing programs we have going on. So you'll see a little bit of a highlight today on our 2024 priorities, but a lot of that is really built on the success that we've had this last year. All right. Few other things just to call out. Really want to say thank you to the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation. And we really had the honor to have Vice Chair Karen Condon and Councilman Andrew Joseph Jr. join us for really the first half of our board retreat up at the Government Center in Nispelum. And honestly, it was, I know Peter sent out a recap afterwards and a few thoughts and pictures. It was just amazing to be able to be up there, to hear from them, to learn more about how we can be better partners with our tribal communities. And it was just a great setting. So I apologize for those of you who were unable to be there with us. And I am sure we will work again to get ourselves up there for another experience. A few quick retreat recaps. We were able to approve the changes to our bylaws to align with our board composition and mission. We will get a copy of the fully revised bylaws out to you guys. I don't believe we've done that yet, so I'll make sure we get that in the next week or two. A lot of the board members there were able to participate in empathy interviews, and this is something that our staff has gone through as well, where it's really focused in active listening and learning from individuals and their personal background and experience, and really helping us see and understand where each of us come from our perspective, potentially when we get into these discussions and decisions. We're going to still encourage and do similar things like that throughout the year. Again, you know, one of the things the board was interested in is how do we build our own knowledge and skills behind diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we do our decision-making processes. And part of that is just actively participating, learning, and growing yourselves. And so we will continue to do that throughout this next year as well. We had a chance to, like I said, to hear from Colville Tribal Business Council individuals, as well as the American Indian Health Commission, who came and presented data across the 9 accountable communities of health. Again, learning to expand and discuss how we can continue to build a meaningful partnership with the Colville tribes and any of our tribal partners in the community. And like I said, we had an opportunity to highlight the amazing work done in 2023 by our staff. And so if you haven't had a chance to see that, again, this is my next reiteration to re-look at that and re-look at the work done. I know Morgan did an amazing job with the 2022 annual report, and she's going to be compiling to do another great 2023 annual report when we get done with this year, not anytime soon. But we'll continue to keep you guys up to speed on all the key things going on at our organization. Few key financial updates. We closed out the work we were doing with the Healthcare Authority chart grant, and so that between July through September, we were able to expend about $2.4 million in funding that we received through the Healthcare Authority for chart-related activities. This includes some of the work we did in expansion around telehealth services, digital equity and digital navigation with NCW Tech Alliance, work we did with mental health and follow-up in the Okanagan County, including also work we've done on how we've been looking at our community-based care coordination system. So again, I really want to give a shout out to the team. We were able to take our work and partnerships that we had and activate and utilize this money in a meaningful way, which by far no other area that had chart grants were able to do this. Like I said, you're here about our audit today, and we will be filing our 990 here in progress as well, which is due November 15th. I would also encourage you guys we will, at the end of the year and moving into this next year, we will have Clifton Larson Allen Wealth Advisory come and give more of an update on our investments, but our investment process is going well, and we are seeing the increase in investments that we'd like to see. That again helps us reinvest dollars back into our community. Few HR projects I just want to update you on is that the 9 accountable communities of health did a cross ACH compensation survey, also included looking at job levels, job reporting, job descriptions. And so we will be compiling that information to share back with the exec committee as well as with our team. And I'm going to be working with Carrie Nelson, who is our HR consultant, to also utilize that to look at our current organizational structure, see if there's any recommended changes based on that. And as we move into waiver 2.0, can we start looking at what potential positions we may need to have in preparation for this upcoming waiver. And then lastly, just a few shout outs I want to give to those individuals from our team that always just do all the work. And I don't always give a good shout out to. For Teresa and Mariah, they've been really supporting the contracting process in conjunction with Sarah and her team on how we're getting a better handle on contracts, how much funding we have out there currently obligated in contracts, and how we're tracking all that. And they've done an amazing job for that. And just again, a shout out for Teresa. She's been helping and really taking the lead on this open enrollment this year and supporting any of those HR related processes to help the team make sure they have the benefits in place and all the needs to operate as an organization. So those aren't always called out in programs, but these are key vital things that keep us going as an organization. So I just wanted to give them both a big shout out for the work that they do. Another just shout out to Wendy. I know we might have touched base on this at the retreat, but October 3rd, we had a rural health tour with a number of Washington state legislators. And we had Wendy organized a panel of our regional behavioral health providers to share some of the challenges in our region, including credentialing and reimbursement. And then legislators got a chance to get a tour of both the Center for Alcohol, Drug Treatment and Parkside, which is American Behavioral Health Services, to see some of our inpatient treatment facilities, get a chance to see, a difference between one that is new versus one that has been around for a very long time, and just get exposed to some of the challenges that we face in rural healthcare, especially rural behavioral health. And then finally, I just wanted to share briefly some of the work that we've been doing in our Vital Conditions Network development and the work of the Stewardship Council and the Shared Measurement Task Force. So you can see up here, just to give you guys an idea of the direction we're going, when you look under the Stewardship Council, we've been working with that council to identify some key goals of what success looks like as we build out a vital condition network, and what kind of things do we need in place to foster that network and foster that ecosystem. And so you'll see things on how we're building a healthy stewardship mindset, how we're leaning into community voice, how we're making sure we have all the players able to operate in a healthy ecosystem, and how we are operating with transparent data. And then when you look at the work that our shared measurement task force has been really leaning into, similar, how do we support and work with partners to build transparent data? How do we make sure data, vital conditions data, is publicly available and we can utilize in our conversations? How do we encourage partners to share data? And then we are going to be in 2024, and Sarah is not able to join us today because she is on vacation. But she is going to be rolling out a well-being survey in 2024 as well. So again, a lot of this work done in building our network which was really an initiative driven by our strategy work group, is starting to get built and come into fruition, and we're going to see a number of things implemented into 2024. And with that, those are slides for later on into the meeting. That is my update. Any questions? All right, Molly, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, thank you. And now it looks like we have the audit report with Tom Dingus of DZA. And I wanted to invite him. There you are.
All right.
And I see Tom on the screen. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Tom's been working, and his team, and Marina, who isn't joining us today, have been working with Sarah and myself and the team on our audit. So I will turn it over to Tom to present. You do have in your packets the management letter and the financial statements as well. So Tom, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. I know some of you, but my name is Tom Dingus from DZA, CPA firm located in Spokane Valley, Washington. We work throughout Washington and the Western United States, really throughout the United States and 25 states or so, exclusively with healthcare organizations, hospitals, community health centers, other types of healthcare institutions, a couple of accountable communities of health, and not-for-profits, audits, Medicare cost reports, IRS Form 990s, and all that type of stuff. Right, five-partner firm with about 60 people in our firm. So just a little quick overview of who we are. I'm going to share screen and cover there'll be two different reports, and is that showing up for everybody, or did I get the right screen sharing there? I don't know can you see I don't think that's right. Let me start again.
We see the report cover.
Oh, you did? Okay, then it was right. Yeah. Okay, sorry. And so I'll go over the two different reports that come with the audit, and please ask questions along the way if you have any questions. It's relatively straightforward. The first audit, or the first document, is the audit of the financial statements and the independent auditor's report. It's the first year you've had your organization's had an audit as a separate organization. You were part of the health district before. So it was you guys had decided a while back before we were engaged that you wanted to do a single year presentation this year on the cash basis. And so you have, for those of you with other health organizations, you'll probably see different titles of the financial statements because you're on an accrual basis. But the idea was to go cash basis this year, and then for fiscal year 23 or calendar year 2023, it will shift to the accrual basis, which is the more traditional way you'll see audited financial statements. So just know this year was cash basis, which means there's no receivables, no liabilities reported, just cash in, cash out type of activity. So you start with the auditor's report on a couple pages and it's an unmodified opinion, which means that the financial statements to follow present fairly the cash position and the results of operations of driving together. It does have an emphasis of matter paragraph because it is on the cash basis of accounting. So that's the main takeaways of that, but unmodified, which is good. The rest of that. And then you get to what's essentially the equivalent of the balance sheet in a for-profit business, the statement of financial position in a not-for-profit organization, and what you'll have next year. is the statement of assets and net assets arising from cash transactions, and just the cash that was on hand or cash in the bank at December 31st, 2022, and then the money that was held by the state, their financial executor, of a little over $20 million. And that's that part of it. Then the next statement is the more meaningful, I think, this year, is your revenue compared to your expenses, with the program revenue, which I'll show on a couple pages here, a note that describes exactly where that comes from on a cash basis of $6 million, and then a little bit of grant revenue and some other investment return on the funds held in the portal. The distributions, the main expense is the distributions to partner organizations, and then also professional fees along the way for the change in net assets of 2.5 million to the positive for the year. There's no statement of cash flows because it is on the cash basis. And then it goes into the notes to the financial statements, which provide information, really three main purposes: who you are as a reporting entity, describes what North Central Accountable Community of Health is, and the area you serve, and the people and communities you serve, and how it's funded. And then the second purpose is the significant accounting policies, which tells you how different balances and transactions are recorded and recognized in the financial statements. Kind of a couple unique ones. It does talk about the funds held by a financial executor, the funds held by the state, which was still the case in 2022. I think that's the case in 2023, though. The one that's important and unique as an accountable community of health is the revenue recognition, which we worked with one of your peer organizations a few years ago, and kind of consulted with some other CPA firms at the time too, that were working with the various ACHs on how to recognize the revenue in the pay for reporting stages, the pay for performance stages, the incentive stages of the funding. And while it's not technically cash basis, in practicality, it's cash basis, because it's not until you really know what the state's going to pay that the revenue can be recognized. But that revenue recognition is an important part of the understanding how the financial statements work. And that's why, while probably not specifically required by any accounting standard, there is this note that we include, or it's included, you include, on what has been recognized as revenue in the reporting period, calendar year 2022. And you can see the pay for performance incentives for the first half of 21, the pay for the other part of that, and the semi-annual reporting, to get to that $6,150,000. So to see where that's coming from. And then just some other notes, related party transaction, just because some of you're the board members, as board members, you also serve in organizations that receive some of the distributions from Thriving Together. So that's shown in the aggregate of what goes to your member organizations. So, and then the functional expenses is the last note that shows how much of your spending, your expenses go to your programs, your behavioral health, care coordination, network support, and then how much goes to management in general, to see how much goes to your mission compared to management in general, for a breakdown there. And then a subsequent event of essentially the investments that John just mentioned that are through Charles Schwab that you now have. Any questions on the audit? I don't know if there's, kind of went through it fast, but there was also not a lot to point out.
Is there anything else you would add to what Tom said?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Man, sorry, there's storms here.
Yeah.
No, I do not have anything additional to add. Working with Tom's group, always easy, lots of fun.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, the second report is a letter that's provided with the audit of additional communication things that you would want to know as a governing board from your auditor. It's kind of a hodgepodge of topics. The first couple, if there had been any changes in accounting policies, we would let you know. There were no changes in accounting policy the first year, so that's kind of wouldn't have been changes anyway, first year. And no unusual transactions. Granted, the revenue recognition is unique, but it's not unusual to what type of organization you are. A lot of financial statements have significant estimates. The most significant estimate in your organization's financial statements is the allocation of expenses between the functions, the mission that I just went over, and management in general. There are some allocations based on time studies and time records and square feet and the like. Next year, the fair value of your investment portfolio will be a significant estimate, likely. No difficulties in performing the audit. And I was like, not jokingly say, but sometimes sometimes we do report there's difficulties in performing an audit. So that's not a given that we'll say that. Another important takeaway is the corrected and uncorrected misstatements, is that there were no material audit adjustments proposed as part of the audit. And we do that quite often, and audits have to provide corrections to the financial statements as part of the audit process. So it's a good indicator when we're not having to do that the financial statements you're getting on a regular basis throughout the year are accurate. So that's a good takeaway of that part. And then some other miscellaneous information, consultations, disagreements with management, nothing to report there. There is a part, and I think some of you, through audits of your organizations, have probably started to see this recently. There's a section where we, as auditors, share what we consider the most significant audit areas. The term in auditing is risk assessment. What are the risks in the audit? We're kind of delicate with using that language externally, because as soon as we say risk, it a lot of times get interpreted as something was done wrong. It's really looking at it as what are the most important things in the financial statements, and really the things that could go wrong and make the most difference is where an auditor spends, in any audit of any organization, is where we put most of our attention. It's not the only thing we look at it, but it is where most of our attention should go. And so that's in sharing that over the last couple of years in a more transparent way with the governing board and management. And in your organization, well, in all audits, there's going to be two almost always, and at least one, and that's management of override controls. If it was a pre-printed form, it would be pre-printed on the form, that's one where we always have some enhanced audit procedures, because if management's overriding the internal controls, that only audit would detect that. And there's almost always going to be a risk related to revenue recognition. And so that your revenue gets extra attention, because that's if there was an error going to be made in the financial statements, or somebody was going to manipulate the financial statements, it would normally be through revenue somehow. So we always look a little closer at that. And then this year you had the third risk of that it was the first year of operations and the first year being audited. So just the extra diligence and scrutiny that goes with the very first time an entity is audited, and also audited by us, but also audited just by anybody. So those were the risks and where we looked at, and nothing unusual was noted or nothing to report, but really more part about the transparency of what the audit process is and does. Any questions or thoughts? See a couple of you on here have heard my audit spiels before, so see Rosalinda right there right now. She's heard ours before.
So this would be the time for them to grill you if they know you.
Yeah.
So Tom, I have a question. Tom, I have a question.
Yes.
So what about the risk of inappropriate spending? I mean, we're an organization that's, just passing a lot of money around in the community. What about the risks of sort of misappropriation that might happen through that process?
Well, the risks, like the main risk is, like we said, we still audit all the whole entire financial statements at some degree or another. So that expenses are addressed as part of the audit procedures. Do we pick a sample and go down to like a detailed level? No, you don't usually see that in any audit process of picking individual expenses. in the case with your biggest expenses are to the one of the biggest groups of expenses is to partner organizations, and that's made through the portal with the the financial executor. So that was relatively easy to verify. The way the system's been set up in the past, that certainly will change going forward. Will be a little more external processes to do that. So yes, we do consider it. Do we do a sample and like go down to each individual transaction? No. Is that where you're?
So essentially you're saying that the statements are correct. We've spent the money,
Yeah.
We spent the money as we said we did, but you're not looking at the appropriateness of the transaction or or any of those sorts of things. That's a little.
Yeah, it cut out either I cut out or you cut out. Because I didn't hear all that, but we do look at it at a higher level, an analytical level, and understanding internal controls and seeing that things make sense at different levels, higher level, like the account. So we do consider it, not generally on a transaction by transaction basis. Certainly, sometimes there's something we look at that's just unique enough that it's like, what is that? Can't think of anything like that in yours this year, but that can happen. Yeah.
I have a question. It's Rosalinda.
Yeah.
Will next year's audit include whether or not we're following the financial policies that we're putting in place this year?
We do look at as part of the audit, we do look at the internal controls in place. And so we look at the key internal controls. We'll see that you have policies and procedures in place. And then we'll look at the key controls of what's related to the key parts of the financial statements. Not all of the controls and not all of the policies, but we will see that. And, it's just as a comment as an auditor, it's generally, I always find that is the newer organizations tend to have the better financial policies and procedures because when you're new, you start from scratch and they're all in place so that actually is sometimes easier for us to audit. Yeah. Any other questions? And the way Zoom's set up on my thing, and the last person to talk gets to be on the main screen. So it's like you don't want to be the last person to talk. Rosalinda needs somebody else to talk.
Well, again, Sarah, knowing that your team has also been supporting this work, do you have any other final thoughts for the board?
Yep. So DZA, as part of their audit, did pull some MOUs and give them a review, and that they had all the appropriate approvals in place and things like that. So I think as far as like doing an overall audit of procedures, it was very encompassing. So
thanks, Sarah, for adding that. I think that pulls those two answers together in a better way than I gave. Thank you.
no worries.
Yeah.
All right. Any final questions, comments? Anything final from you, Tom?
I have nothing else to add except thank you for having us and thanks.
I lied. We have one more. Next year, we do expect there to be a single audit, just so the board knows.
And as Tom mentioned, in the past, the accountable committees of health, especially during the first part of the waiver, worked with a lot of the auditors that they contract with around revenue recognition and some of the unique correctness of how the funds were paid. And so there is probably a likelihood at some point in time we'd be re-engaging with Tom's group about looking at some of those similar questions as we get contracting and protocols in place for the new waiver.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Tom.
Right,
Did you have
thanks,
anything else,
everyone.
Tom?
Otherwise, Molly, I would turn it over to you, and I believe we need a board motion to approve the audited financials as presented and in the board packet.
Is
So
that-
moved.
Second.
Right. Do I have a motion and a second? Any questions at this time? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed would be nay. Any abstentions? We have noted our absentees, so motion carried. Thank you. Approval of the 2022 audit.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Looking forward to next year.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. And now I'm not sure who I'm passing it off to, so I'm looking at John for the 2024 priorities.
So you are passing it back to me. And there's going to be a few things that we cover in this section prior to turning it over to Sarah to really do a little bit of a dive into our draft 2024 budget. So we wanted to kind of revisit. You've seen in the past, we've created a 5-year or 3-year goal document that we outlined 4 key goals that we were looking at achieving for Thriving Together NCW, as well as our mission statement and our vision. And so our team has been working internally for a while to look at some recommended adjustments to the mission statement, as well as really adjustments to those goals that we could transfer them from kind of 3-year priorities to 5-year goals that really outline what we're trying to achieve and for what reason. And so today we wanted to I was going to go through and give you guys a preview of that. What we're going to do after this is send you guys the red line version of the document so you can dig deeper into this. And with a hope that we can spend some additional time at the December meeting, really talking about what if we would like to make a change to our mission statement and really how we can imagine our 5-year goals as an organization. After that, then we're really, for a team, we're going to jump into our 2024 program budget goals. And so you'll see these broken up really into our priorities for the sake of aligning with our budget. You're going to see when we get into our 2024 budget goals, they're going to align with our classes that we've seen in our financial statements. So they'll align with administration, network support, care coordination, and behavioral health. A lot of those really do filter in. Network support filters in to really help achieve priorities 1 and priority 2s that you will see. Behavioral health and care coordination really focus to drive into our 3rd priority that you'll see. And the team is going to spend some time digging into each one of those a little bit. You'll hear, again, a lot of more high level where our focus is next year, how it ties to the budget. And we can, based on today's discussion, also bring a little bit more detail of that to the December meeting. So with that, we just wanted to put on the screen, and again, you're going to see this in a red line version. This is a recommended update to our mission. We wanted to remove all the red lines today just to give you guys an opportunity to read it at a glance without seeing the previous one, but then you'll get a chance to come back before the next meeting and see some of the recommendations. So I'll just give you guys a moment to read it to yourselves. So I'm giving you a brief moment because hopefully it didn't take you that long to read. But a few things I would call out in here that you're going to see as you look at the red line version is we really made a recommendation of adding health and well-being into our mission to have a focus around the vital conditions in our work moving forward with the vital conditions. We did change, I will just give an example. We changed stakeholders to partners, unifying partners, just to be in alignment with the wording that best represents how we partner with our tribal community members. And then at the end, we actually did remove, with particular attention to social determinants of health, just to streamline the statement as a whole. So again, you guys are going to see this redlined a little bit. I'm also going to ask you guys, as we provide feedback, provide the document over the next month, that you guys also provide some comments back on what you like, dislike, and any additional thoughts that you may have to it. Underneath that, we really identified as an internal team 3 key priorities we thought would drive that mission statement. So as you're looking at these next 3 slides, what I want you to think about is, as you read the priority off to the left, so leverage the vital conditions framework along with stories and data to enhance and inspire local and regional collective action. What we're asking is, to what end? So that, in the example of this one, diverse leaders across our region share unified language and understanding of well-being and stewardship that inspires collaboration and action. So the next 3 slides that you'll see really would align with that concept of we are doing that priority so that we see the following achievements underneath that.
John, this is Molly. Maddie Osborne looks like she might be having some visual problems, so I just wanted to let you know. She said her screen is
for
black.
everyone else.
I can see it. Yeah.
I can see it fine.
Is Maddie still black for you? I'm assuming.
It is, which is so odd, but I'm trying to follow along in the packet. I don't think these slides are in that.
These were
packet.
not
That's
in the packet, and I can read them. You're gonna have to deal with my painful voice as I read through all this, but I can read them so that you can follow along. And we're gonna send these out also with the previous priorities as well for you guys.
I can email them to her really quick, John.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Teresa.
Thank you.
But again, as you're reading through these, the things I would want to focus on is our first priority was really as part of the stewardship strategy work group and now the stewardship council is how we're building a network under the vital conditions, really to support a group of individuals with a stewardship mindset who want to share data with a goal of achieving all people and places thriving. And so these are really the end statements we're looking at focusing on to achieve as part of that work. And then the second priority, and both the priority 1 and priority 2 are the same that we shared in that 3-year goal document. The bullets that go off to the right are the things I have seen the majority of the changes. So priority 2, again, is provide learning, investment, and advocacy opportunities to strengthen belonging and civic muscle through North Central Washington. And I want to say a lot of the emphasis on this priority has been around the fact that civic muscle and belonging is at the core of all key vital conditions in the work that we do. And so we are looking at, as an organization, putting a lot of focus on that priority and how are we bringing our network of partners along so that they can lean into that work as well. And so you can see really off to the right that so that leaders from across our region will be inspired and know how to engage and share power with marginalized communities to address disparities in our region. So what are we doing as an organization to move all of our funded partners and our network of partners, funded or not, along so that we have the ability as a region to achieve that objective? And then again, the third priority was really a combination of what we had was originally 3 and 4, focused on community-based care coordination and behavioral health services. And what we're really finding is a lot of work that we do both in community-based care coordination and behavioral health is still tied to that coordination of care. And so we really blended them together to really emphasize or focus on how there is that interconnectivity. And so the third priority we were working on as an organization is to support collaborative efforts to improve and connect systems of care across clinical and community settings in North Central Washington, so that community-based workforce and clinical workforce is well equipped and well compensated for working with residents who are struggling and suffering, so that organizational capacity for information exchange and care coordination increases. And again, so that all residents in North Central Washington can really access and benefit from the resources that they need to thrive. So as you're thinking of these, let me pause for a minute. As you guys read the slides and heard my overview of it, is there any key questions that come to mind? Or comments? They don't even have to be a question. And
This
Ray,
is Molly.
oh, go ahead, Molly.
I just wanted to say that as I'm reading these and then the bulleted points, I can actually see the different work that we would be doing in this scenario and in that scenario. And I just loved that. I can see where we would be able to interact with communities, and yeah, just wanted to say that it did tell a story to me.
And Molly, I appreciate you saying that, because as we share these out with the board, that's exactly the kind of thinking would love to get input from you all. So when you say, I can see what we're doing, or what would be some of the tangible outcomes, that's our hope, is as a board, you're thinking about what are some of these key high-level priorities that would help us then as a staff and an organization get down to more of those operational ways of helping to achieve it. Linda, I saw you wanted to see priority 1. Did you have any questions on it?
No questions. I just missed all of the pieces there, so I just wanted to go back.
And I apologize. That's why I'll continue to reiterate. This was like your intro, and we will actually give you time to digest and review and provide feedback on it, and we'll bring it to a fuller discussion at the December meeting. So we kind of just wanted to give you a preview of things to start thinking about, see if there were any major questions that any one board member may have that might spark other thinking between the board members as you have an opportunity to look at this over the next month.
This is Maddie. I have just a quick comment. So I still can't see them quite yet, but I will review them in more detail. Just a encouragement along with the other things that we've been working on to make sure that we have clear measurement or a knowledge of how we would evaluate come the end of the year, or even in between, of how we're achieving those, right? Like whether we're meeting those or not. So I think that'll serve us really well. So just an encouragement to keep up with that.
And I think getting these solidified as a board will help us then next move into how are we measuring success to these. So I appreciate that comment, Maddie. Dr. Tuggy, you look off mute.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the whole idea about integration versus coordination. I mean, sometimes there's components of what we do, I think, within our social services system, within the healthcare system, that we need to figure out a better way to either co-locate and integrate in a way that allows for much better collaboration than our current kind of silos that we tend to live in. I'm not sure how, I mean, we talk about collaboration in here, coordination, but I think being really, really creative with what are the ways we could actually co-locate people to really enhance the team type of function beyond just this, like the medical team or just the social services team or the housing team, and I think with the many organizations that we have, because they're in separate sites, it does create a challenge for that. So I just think about some of the, in part of our strategic thinking as we look at partners that we work with frequently, how do we, what are the ways we could actually create like we don't have space in some of our facilities to have social work services available on site, you know, and if we did, it would be so much better than having to send people to a whole other place. So you kind of decentralize some services and you centralize others in order to make them more collaborative, more effective.
Yeah, and in a rural community, your point is correct. It's tough when it's a large number of small entities working together in collaboration to do this, whereas sometimes in larger areas, you see one organization really managing a large chunk of these.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Maddie, I apologize for your black screen. I think Teresa was trying to send it on to you as well. And again, we will get these out to the full board to look at, provide comments and reactions to, and we'll also, I'll work with the team to figure out what's the best way to collect all that information as well, so that you guys all have an opportunity to provide feedback on it. What I want to move into now is, as we are getting into starting November, and at our December annual meeting, we will be approving a budget. We want to really dive into now our 2024 program budget and some of the key priorities we have under that budget. And so we're going to take some time right now to go through each of the classes, and each of the staff members are going to speak to some of the key focus areas they have coming through the pike in 2024. And then that will give you an understanding when Sarah comes up and shares the 2024 draft budget, how that relates to the numbers that are on the actual budget spreadsheet. And so first, we're going to cover the work under network support. And one of the things two things I would share about this really is network support really helps to achieve, again, a lot of that focus in priorities 1 and priorities 2 that you saw. And we've been really utilizing this as the way that we build out that network as a whole. Also, we've had telehealth and digital equity work under this as well. And there's a crossover with network support and care coordination. So at some point in the future, you could also see some of this work tie under or care coordination as well. But I'm going to turn it over to Wendy so she can really share the work that's going on under telehealth and digital equity, especially what's going to occur in 2024.
Thanks, John. For 2024, we're going to continue the work that we've been working on. Chart truly accelerated our telehealth efforts in our proof of concepts between our clinical and our community partners, both in the library and the ESD digital access points. Both have been able to utilize the space, see patients, and start to work out the kinks. And so we'll continue to do that. We do have one, potentially 2 new clinical organizations who are looking at doing their assessment and potentially look at implementation of maturity. And we have additional schools and libraries who want to sign on to this. One success we found through the chart funds and the proof of concepts, the schools were working with just 1 or possibly 2 clinical partners, and they've reached out and said, hey, we want to work with more. So we've now started to connect with other clinical partners to bring them in. They may not be working with us on their telehealth maturity, but it is again a way for us to continue to streamline processes between clinical and community partners, and to ensure we're not duplicating services, and that we're really working and partnering together within our communication and streamlining services. So we'll continue that with telehealth. And then digital equity work, we'll continue to work with NCW Tech Alliance on 2.0. We do have a digital equity coalition that will continue to convening. And as far as the work plan for 2024, we're working with the Tech Alliance on what that could look like. We took some of the, as you may know, we applied for the Department of Commerce grants. We were unsuccessful in that, but we took some components of that to look at how could we continue to roll that out. Definitely in a smaller chunk of money, I think half of what, or even a quarter of what they were asking for a year. But what can we do until we can find some other funding sources? We're also looking at continuing to partner with CHNW, Community Health Network of Washington, whom we were written into their Department of Commerce grant in the 2022-2023, which really kicked off this digital equity work, and how we can continue to partner with them alongside NCW Tech Alliance to continue those efforts and build on the momentum that we had already started. And I'll turn it back to John.
And just note too is the telehealth work is kind of an expansion of the restricted funds, or includes the restricted funds we had in place that the board approved about a year and a half ago. And so we were able to get that boost from chart funding to get a lot of additional work done. And then now we're really diving back into the plan with a step ahead, utilizing those restricted funds to help see through what we're trying to achieve. I know Sarah is not here, but even under this network support and the work of our shared measurement task force, the things I would call out is she's really been working with that task force and looking at how we build out and look at measuring well-being data as a whole. And a lot of that has included the work she's done in partnership with IP3, which is working to build a measurement platform utilizing the vital conditions. She is also looking at how we implement a well-being survey next year to look at collecting data around thriving in our region and start measuring thriving in our region as a whole. We continue to partner. I see Teresa on here as our public health board representative. So we're continuing to always have conversations with public health to ensure that we're aligning and staying in our lanes. You know, it's always going to be a conversation as a whole to make sure that we're partnering together, to make sure that we're always clear on what direction we're going. And so we always work to stay in good communication with public health and try to seek their feedback as well. But the ultimate goal is really to start utilizing that data in how we look at engaging into the vital conditions and that network next year of thriving. And with that would lead to Veronica sharing the work that she is looking at doing under the Vital Conditions Network.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm super excited for what's to come in 2024 as far as network development goes. I continue to work with staff members and consultants on ways to grow a regional network across the vital conditions. Some of these ideas include learning sessions, dialogues, where we can take a deeper dive into each of the vital conditions, learn from state, national efforts, and then highlight those local efforts that are happening across our region so that we can empower a healthy, I guess, ecosystem of learning from one another across the region. And so my goal as I wrap up, this year's efforts and prep for 2024 is to work closely and lean into the Stewardship Council to really understand how to best bring diverse groups of people and partners that are doing this amazing work within the vital conditions already, so that together we can enhance the vital conditions of our communities across the region. So that is all I have, John, so I'll take it back to you.
And I know a number of board members also sit on that Stewardship Council as well. So Rosalinda, Peter, Dr. Tuggy, whoever else I am not seeing on the screen right now that I'm missing. Thank you all for your efforts in that work and really defining and helping us build out that network as a whole. Next year, again, as Veronica said, is going to be really moving from a lot of that strategy Stewardship Council into the community. And so really getting this out with our network of partners. And then moving into one of the other key focus areas of classes, we've done a lot of focus work around behavioral health as well, especially around the recovery coach work. And so I'm going to turn it over to Joey to share some of the key things going on with the Recovery Coach Network and recovery work as a whole.
Thanks, John. So for 2024, we're really wanting to enhance and support the recovery coaches in our region. We have 200 plus recovery coaches we've trained, and over 60 of them are employed working in the field. And so just continuing to do trainings like motivational interviewing, art of hosting, and the CCAR has created an advanced recovery coach training that will be happening early next year. That's really going to support this workforce that we've created in our region. building sustainability into the recovery coach jail pilot and ED pilot. We've been doing this work for a while now, and we really are wanting to look at how do we sustain this long term. And the work has really grown rapidly, and it's needing more support that I am not able to do by myself. And so Advance is leading the recovery navigator work in our region, and that they're set up to do direct service work and have already been really doing a great job with that. And so we're wanting to contract them to administratively support this work and make sure it's done the same across our region. And so that's something that we plan on doing in 2024. The emergency department pilot is getting ready to kick off any day. And so we're really in the infancy stages of that pilot, and it's starting in Samaritan Hospital in Moses Lake. We've partnered with Renew and have 2 recovery coaches really eager to do that work. Really excited for that. Expanding the Narcan vending machine project. We have just put a 5th machine up in Nispelum at the Human and Health Services office. Really excited about that. And how do we expand that into more of those parts of the community that don't have that low barrier access? And so getting it out into some more of the more rural towns in our region. We've given out 1,600 kits of Narcan and have had 107 overdose reversals in our region. So that's really some great news. I think that's it.
And just a emphasis on Joey's work, a lot of this has been a commitment of the recovery program that we've had in place, that we have about 2 more years of commitment for. And Joey's right, we're really looking forward to partnering with Advance this next year to take on managing the recovery jail contracts, because they really have that expertise to be really in some ways the organization that can help oversee and manage those recovery coaches as a whole. We were able to really jumpstart it. As we're looking at sustainability, we really want an organization that can help build additional infrastructure under them so that they can be more competitive for funding sources outside of our own. So looking forward to seeing that grow and the work underneath that. And then again, a lot of work that we've continued to do under behavioral health is the work that Wendy has been doing as a whole, both in funds that we've set aside for recovery work group. And so I'm going to turn this over to Wendy to share more on the behavioral health work that's been going on and our focus for this next year.
Thanks, John. I just want to give a shout out to John, to Joey for leading the effort in the Narcan vending machine. As you know, there's several across the state, and Spokane just got their first one. But just to remind everyone, we were the first in the region because of Joey's effort. So kudos to us. Pat on back, Joey. So on to my work. I'll continue facilitating the behavioral health work group. We are working, our behavioral health work group is partnering with public health to do a phase 1 assessment of really understanding what's going on in the region, and that will continue. And we're starting to look at some mapping, and that should wrap up really either the end of the year or the first to the beginning of the year. And as we're wrapping that up, we're starting to work with Central Washington University's Masters of Public Health program to conduct phase 2 of the behavioral health assessment, which is really about focus groups. We received a $20,000 grant from Cambia Health Foundation to contract that to really go and host several focus groups, I should say, in one-on-one interviews. And so CWU will be doing that. Their faculty and students will be conducting those in all 4 of our counties. We let them know that behavioral health agencies are different for each county. So it's basically 3 minis assessments rolled up into one regional assessment. So it'll benefit our public health partners because they'll see their county level behavioral health assessment, and then we'll see a overall regional assessment too, to really identify the gaps and barriers The behavioral health work group intends to take this information and continue to work on piloting solutions, such as the mental health ED triage program that we have up in Tonasket. That's already started at the beginning of this year. They're already seeing successes. It's interesting doing it in a rural hospital because they've never done behavioral health. So there was a lot of policies and procedures and that had to be written, workflows, trainings. It was a really heavy lift over this summer, and we were able to use chart funds to get that lifted, hired a consultant to get that lifted off the ground. And so far it's being a lot of successes are being reported. And we're hoping to roll that out into another hospital. It'll look a little different. We intended to do it with Confluence, but with Confluence leadership change, some changes that have going on in their emergency department, we're rolling out Plan B, and that will be partnering with Catholic Charities to embed someone in the Confluence emergency department. So we should be meeting with them soon. We actually have a meeting on the books in a couple of weeks to talk about what that will look like. And both Confluence and Catholic Charities are excited about option B. So more to come on that. And we're going to continue to collaborate. I left a word out. Sorry. Should it be behavioral health career pathways? Collaborate with partners to create behavioral health career pathways. We're getting ready to apply for a program builders grant to help with the Wenatchee Valley College, Big Bend Community College rollout of their Bachelor in Behavioral Health degree. And we're still waiting from OSPI to see if we were able to get the Certified Peer Counselor as an industry recognized degree, industry recognized credential. And if so, then we'll be working with our North Central ESD partners to look at how we can roll that into our high schools. And it's really about that career pathways from high school through community college onto the universities, and how we can stair step that career ladder for behavioral health, hopefully growing our own within our region. So those are the 3-4 major projects that we've got going on next year.
Hey, Wendy, I got a question. This is Ray.
Sure.
Hey, as I've been thinking about behavioral health and our system that is hodgepodge together, is there any way, or is there any vision to try to push DOH by creating a statewide system?
Oh, DOH is public health. We are healthcare authority.
I know, but I think
so. No,
but I think there's an opportunity where we could help encourage a statewide behavioral health system.
Let's talk more offline about what your vision is on that, and then see what we can do and what partners we should bring it to the table to talk more about.
Okay.
Thanks, Ray.
And this has been, Ray, to your point, I would emphasize there was a good conversation with DOH around credentialing at the legislative session about how that could be made more effective. HCA, again, HCA has been our primary partner in all of this work, and with it being our MCOs. And I know Maddie is probably listening as well. There's probably a number of conversations we could loop into this as a whole. But again, this has been a nice expansion, especially as we look at supporting the workforce in our community as a way of sustainability and how we really build into this work. And then in conjunction with that, again, behavioral health and care coordination has really been a focus of that key priority of 3 of bringing everything together. But we've really been, since the end of the discontinuing of the pathways, have we been really leaning into this community-based care coordination work and how we build a better system. And so I'm going to turn it over to Caroline to share what's been going on and key focuses for 2024 in community-based care coordination.
Thanks, John. We've been convening 2 work groups, the resource directory work group and a care coordination platform work group, which has since sunset. But those 2 work groups were working on trying to guide investments in shared infrastructure around resource directory information, something that everybody needs, but everybody seems to have their own resource directories in silos. And so we're trying to, with our work group, figure out, we're close to identifying some investments we would want to make next year or beyond in human beings, which it turns out that's what you need to maintain up-to-date information. IT is not magic. And people keep building websites or leaning on this IT platform or this vendor, and it's really fundamentally an issue of workflows and people. And how do we maintain information that is constantly changing? And how do we find dedicated resources across the region, and where do we place them? Where is a smart place to place them? And it turns out that it makes a lot of sense to put them in some of our community-based organizations that are really already leaning into community-based care coordination, whether it's folks at Advance with the Recovery Navigator program, or folks that are involved in the Health Home program, or there's a lot of opportunities there. Their IT investments, over a year ago, we decided to pilot building out some case management IT systems for some of our community-based orgs. So this is totally not the clinical partners. This is the community-based partners that often don't have platforms. And we picked VisionLink. I think I mentioned this in past meetings. And we now have both Action Health Partners and Advance that are building out modules using the same shared platform. And wanted to give Ray a shout out because he was part of the IT platform work group. And also I wanted to give Nancy a shout out for being part of the regional resource directory platform work group. There's still a lot of unknowns, quite honestly, around what this is actually going to look like. And so when I was budgeting with John and Sarah's coaching, Sarah Krosky, she kind of helped me think through, like, am I 75% sure that some of this is going to happen? And quite honestly, in a lot of these areas, I'm not 75% sure exactly what we're going to invest in yet, which means that some of those big picture, slow things that are starting to emerge are not yet reflected in the budget. Only the things that we really know are going to be reflected in the budget. So I'm just mentioning that to say that if there's room for a budget amendment next year, when I know more and when the picture becomes clearer, then I would probably come back with more information at that point. The same is true with preparing for the waiver. There's a lot of unknowns. We're trying to position ourselves so that we are in a good place and well positioned for the waiver and the expectations of the waiver. And we've had our second meeting now with the regional CDCC advisory committee. We have representation from all sorts of community-based care coordination partners, including public health, community paramedicine, recovery navigators, health home administrators. And the idea is that if we all look at this together and figure it out together, we're more likely to come up with a system that works for the partners who are part of the system versus making a bunch of assumptions. But right now, there are a lot of assumptions and a lot of unknowns. And so we will come back to you when we know more next year. The thing that is the most clear in the budget around care coordination are the cross-sector collaboration projects that we funded through those special funds this past year. So as you remember, the Community Review Committee reviewed projects and basically allocated all the funds that had been set aside. So some of those involve multi-year MOUs. So we know we can predict with certainty, for the most part, how much will be dispersed next year. So those are reflected in the budget. I will pause there and see if there's any questions around this area. Okay, John.
And I think Caroline brought up a good point just to emphasize as you're looking at the budget, because when you see the spreadsheet, you'll see that that we actually, our budget ended up our overall budget ended up decreasing a little bit. And we've really put a lot of emphasis on what do we know is going to happen this next year. And then if we don't know, we're going to leave it out until we have enough information to bring it back. And community-based care coordination really is one of those areas where as the waiver comes through, we will see an increase in expenditures, but we're still really waiting to be sure what that work is and what it will look like. I'd also emphasize too that, like, as you've heard a lot of what individuals are saying, this is a lot of continuation and expansion of the work that we've identified in those original three-year priorities that are turning into 5-year goals. And so a number of these are continuations of contracts, continuation of restricted funds that we've had in place. I think probably the biggest thing that emerged out of 2023 that's going to be new in 2024 is our partnership with the NCW Tech Alliance and building out that digital navigation and digital equity work as well. And that was probably one of the larger projects that we're looking at continuing into 2024. And because administration is a class, and so I felt like I had to create a slide for this to round out our 4 classes, but it's the most, I don't want to say it's the glue that holds all of this together, but it's the less exciting part of it for the board. You can see really some of our key focuses in administration. So as we move into waiver 2.0, we're going to really focus on how we continue to strengthen our financial depth, how we can start being more competitive for other grant funding. And so we're actually going to be working with CLA to expand some grant writing capacity as a whole, so that we have that depth as well. Continue to build an ability to track and manage grant funding. Again, making sure that we have those processes in place. Continue to enhance communications to the community. I think, I can't speak good enough about how even just our change in name this year and our public perception has gone, and really just a shout out to the whole team, especially Morgan, around the rebranding and really how it's really gotten us out there more into the community, and really continuing to increase and make connections with regional partners. I was telling Teresa today that there's still an area of improvement in Grant County and how we can continue to build and expand partnerships in Grant County. So the hope of getting out there more, we have really strong relationships across our region, but that's an area I'd love to continue to build and expand relationships in as a whole. And so all of that really contributes to what you'll see when Sarah Krowski goes over the draft financial budget worksheet. So I asked Sarah in her section to really start with that, to link it up to all the programmatic concepts that we have into play. And so feel free, Sarah, I'm going to ask you to share screen on that, but feel free as she goes through that to ask any questions you have based on what you heard from staff. Staff can jump in and explain any details or any budgetary items you have as well. So I'm going to turn it, sorry, Molly, I'm merging the two, and I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to just jump in. And you're on mute, Sarah.
That would make it a little more complicated. All right. So first of all, I just want to make sure everyone can see the budget, the draft budget. Okay. So basically the approach was to take everything from the ground up. So what do we know that's already going on, and what do we anticipate that is 75% sure can make it through the MOU process and an initial payment in 2024? So as you've heard everybody and all their irons in the fire, because not just everyone from the boards on work groups, but these guys are out in the community. What we did is we really took each class and built up from there. So as you can see, we're looking at an overall revenue of 8.8 million. Again, a lot of that is we get our last infusion of 2021 deliverable monies. That's sitting around 2.5 million. And then we are slated, as far as the current contract goes with the HCA, to get our first waiver 2.0 payment by June 30th, 2024. In that, we know, sorry, I'm going to start with revenue and then go to expenses because my brain works that way. So please feel free to stop me if everybody's brain works in a different way. So within that, we looked then at what are our overall goals for grants. Okay, so we're hoping to apply for 4 or 5 grants next year. A lot of this we anticipate to be right around how Wendy spoke about getting Central Washington and the education off the ground and building up that workforce in the community over time. And so we do plan to still hold. Teresa does a very good job of this. So please step in. We're still hoping and anticipating to do some more recertification. Seminars is not the right word, but insert everybody getting together to do their trainings, annual trainings for the year. So we anticipate to still do those. So we've budgeted $70,000 for that because there's opportunity to expand that. Building capacity trainings. Thank you, John. So overall, as people apply and pay to attend those, we're looking to have an overall $8.8 million revenue year. So as we then look into what contracts we already have, and I apologize, everyone, we use MOUs, memorandums for our partners, but they're still subject to all contracting as far as accounting goes. So all MOUs, program contracts, supported IT contracts within the network support, we have reflected all of those for everyone's knowledge under program. So because all of these are going to support the work for not just the partners, but then the infrastructure build out to anyone and any of the MOUs we have ongoing. So please reference back to some of what Wendy said as far as building out libraries and hospitals, all that infrastructure bit. As far as this goes, they're all under program. Okay.
And Sarah,
So-
can I add just details? So really anything
Please.
on their program is what we pay partners. And then there's been instances where we work with a contractor directly to work with a partner. So instead of paying a partner to hire that contractor, there'll be times where we pay that contractor directly to work with the partner. So they're really for that external partner, but they have a contract with us. And so that's what we put under program because it's not necessarily anything that works with us. If we've ever had a contractor that's helping us with internal strategy or internal work and community initiatives, has traditionally been when we classified as that, they would fall under contract services. So I just wanted to provide that clarity. So as you're saying that, people understood kind of that delineation.
Yes. Thank you. So now that we're done kind of rounding out where our programs are at, really the next big expense that we have is the salaries and wages. Now, this is a draft budget because we do expect to get a document and an infusion of information from a salary study that was done. And we anticipate also to give a COLA. So again, our estimation, till those are finalized for the next board meeting in December, we're looking at about 1.3. So this is with 2 additional employees. We anticipate with waiver 2.0, there's going to be some expansion within this and to build out capacity to further the waiver 2 goals. Okay, so then what is different about this than the prior year is that we've been working with DZ8 to break out some of the regular utilities, insurance. We're breaking those and spreading them out amongst the program to help with the functional expense for the audit next year. So that's another change. I just wanted everyone to realize that normally we would house these all in admin, but the statement of functional expense is starting to break things out by square footage. So we are following suit. So as you look at the next year's audited financials, there's some continuity along the way. Okay. So does anyone have any questions so far? Excellent. So the last thing I wanted to really touch on as far as the draft budget goes is that we're looking at coming in and having no capital expenditures for next year. So as far as buying anything of substantial or hitting the capitalization threshold, we are not looking at any of those. I just wanted to make sure everyone kind of knew that, because under GAAP, that would be reported on the balance sheet. And for budgeting purposes, I always leave a line down here at the bottom, just so we can always keep an idea of where our major commitments are. I know the numbers part is kind of the boring part.
I think the only other emphasis I would say is when you look on the right side again, when you look under the behavioral health work, a lot of that is really programmatic work under the recovery coaches work, behavioral health work group that has been things reallocated and continuing. As Caroline said, under care coordination, that's probably the area where we would see the most adjustment in the budget associated with any kind of amendments once we continue to get more information. And then that network support really is around building out that vital conditions network and building capacity, which has been a big priority for our region. So it's not a surprise to see that be a larger budget item in the overall budget.
John, any concerns for sustainability with this budget?
Really at this point, no. I feel like as we move into the second waiver and we look at some additional contracting funds, we're still pretty stable for at least 5 to 10 years. We're still going to look at, I think the biggest area we're going to want to track and think about revenue to support it is under that network work. And as we build out a network for vital conditions, we have plenty of funding available to support that for a number of years. But it's also an area that, as we continue to build that out, is probably going to be one of the harder ones around collaboration, convening to find grant funding for. So we're going to want to also start thinking about how we target direct funding into some of that work over the course of the next year or two. Short term, we are very financially stable at this point.
Yeah, because some of that grant funding might need matching, right? And so that will impact our budget also. So,
and that's, working with Sarah and CLA, we're starting to look at additional grants to apply for. And so we do have a goal of trying to identify 3 to 4 additional funding sources that we can apply for in 2024.
And those were specifically looking for cost reimbursement and not matching.
Other questions from board members, as you heard from the team, where some of our key programmatic priorities are and how it aligns with next year's budget? Or any concerns or comments? Peter, you're on mute.
I was going to say it all looks very positive, but Sarah, I'm wondering if there's a convention on the direction of the signs in that difference column. Just a little misleading to me that at the net income loss line that it looks like we're doing worse rather than better at the bottom line, but
Oh, I apologize.
I mean, I think it's just a copy down of formulas, but revenue going up, I would view as being a positive, and bottom line improving would be a positive too. Is that possible to change that? It's just a nit.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, Peter. I gotta write that down.
Looks great though.
Yeah, and Peter, to that point, and a little bit to Ray's point, the thing that's when we get into contracting for the second waiver, which is gonna be a significant amount of funds over the next few years, it is going to be more restrictive than the original waiver. So there's going to be more requirements to spend that in community-based care coordination. There is funding available for some core ACH infrastructure as well. But programmatically, a lot more of that's going to be care coordination focused as a whole, which again, we'll look around at our programming about specifically what fits in that and then what the requirements to waiver are as well to see how any of that aligns.
So John, does that speak to some of that audit risk on revenue recognition about whether we actually earn that money or get paid for it? Is that?
Yes.
They haven't, I will say in the first waiver and Peter, you were with us for most of that time. We were kind of on a pay for reporting and pay for performance. And so we had an estimated amount, but until we got a letter from the healthcare authority, we never knew if we hit that estimated amount, if we made more or if we made less. And so that was a little bit more of what the risk was that Tom was talking about, is you were technically earning it during the period of your performance, but you never really knew how much you earned until you got that letter. I think this will be a little bit different than that, but it's still yet to be determined. Any final questions? Well, you all have the joy of one more month to think about this, because officially we don't approve the budget until our December annual meeting. And I know the Finance Committee, I'm hoping you guys should have access to more of the detailed report as well. We try to share it via SharePoint. So if you can't gain access to it, just let us know that you can't, and we'll work on that. We're trying new technology while we share the budget, so we can't promise that they both sync up. And then Sarah, I guess I would turn it over to you for the second portion, the ED contracting resolution.
Great. Okay. So took the feedback from the last meeting and we've kind of gone back to the drawing board and really looked at John's contract with the board and how the process is working. And more importantly, as part of the budgeting process. Oh, let me share my screen again. Hold on. Recalculating route. All right. In the budgeting process, we identified 149 contracts that are either considered an MOU, which is a contract, or like CLA's contract, DZA's contract. So as we've worked through this, what we're trying to do is strategically align all the pieces. Okay. And so in your packet, you will see a board resolution. There is we included 6 because that was the original resolution. And then this is the next resolution. The resolution in your packet has some red lines in it so everyone can see the edits that were made based on the feedback given. And what we're looking to do is we're looking to align.
Sarah?
Yeah.
I can't see your screen, and I don't think anyone else can.
And also I wanted to let
Far less
everyone,
exciting.
it's on page 46 of your packet as well. You need to look.
Okay. It must be the hail that's going on here. I apologize. I don't know why my screen is black. So you said it was 40. Okay, so in page 44 of your packet, sorry, you might have said 43, so I apologize. You will see resolution 6, and this is where the board set a 10% or 50,000 deviation from the budget. There were some inconsistencies, as John is the only one that's able to sign contracts, and in his contract with you guys, and how and when timings of information happen. John, please step in when needed. So what we're doing is we're basically aligning all the resolutions and contracting to provide seamless partner delivery, right? And so as we look at resolution number 7, what we're doing is we're coming in and combining those things to provide that seamless service to our partners. So with the feedback, we did lower all agreements in total aggregate to 250,000 or less. And all other contracts would be first vetted through the finance committee as far as making sure that they were aligning with missions, goals, budget, and strategic alignment, and then on for the board to discuss and approve.
And Sarah, the one thing I want to share is the red line here is it was hidden in the document and then it showed up on the carryover. So there's no necessarily significance except for some editing associated with it.
Okay, thank you.
Just so if people we're trying to figure out the significance behind the red lining, there really wasn't.
I have a quick question. This is Maddie.
Please.
So when you began this segment, you were talking about how you did an evaluation or that you reviewed all the partner contracts. Just out of curiosity, and if you don't have it on point, no problem. What percentage or how many of those met or exceeded the threshold of 250?
I think we saw 2, John.
Yeah, and with some of the changes, I would say we're going to have probably moving into next year 6 to 12 contracts as a whole that reach that. I'm already aware of 2 potential contracts that we were looking at for 2024 that would come to the board in December for approval because it exceeds that amount. And this is on the expenditure side at this current point when I'm answering that question. Part of this too, to answer your question, Maddie, is as we look at multi-year contracting, we've traditionally had a lot of single-year contracts that then tend to get renewed year after year. So if we do a consistent contract, we'll say for like 2 years, it might hit that threshold that a 1-year contract might not have hit. And so if we develop it as a 2-year contract, then you could see that come to the board for approval. And we've been looking at doing that more often. And so that would trigger more contracts to come to the board.
So the partners are requesting multi-year contracts to help with their budgeting.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
other questions? I think, and Sarah, I can't remember if you said that, I think the major questions that came up when we brought this up in August was the dollar amount. And so we did reduce it. Originally, the way you presented it was 750, and we reduced it down to 250, as well as the change that basically anything over 250 goes to the board. And Peter, Rosa, Linda, did you guys have any comments or thoughts when you reviewed this as part of the finance committee to add?
No, I think this is appropriate because it makes sure that the big items are definitely going to the finance committee and board for in-depth review and approval. And it also makes sure that we are having a good budget process so that we don't have to bring every little thing to the board for approval. So I like this.
Yeah, ditto.
So Molly, if there's no other questions, we would turn this over to you to determine if we would approve this resolution for the board.
All right, everyone has had a chance to review resolution number 7 and the accompanying number 6 as a historical piece. At this time, I would entertain a motion of approval or discussion. If there's further questions.
Israel, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let me catch up here. All right, I have a motion and a second. Final offer for questions, discussion. And hearing none, at this time, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed would be nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, John. Got that done. And thank you, Sarah.
And that is it on our part, Molly. So I
Okay.
will turn you back over to you.
All right. Up next is the governance committee update with Linda McKay.
All right. So here is where we are at. So with the change of our new bylaws and structure, here's where we are landing in terms of starting our year off. I am happy to say that Nancy, Carlene, and Ray have all, I was just going to ask on that. Nancy, Carlene, and Ray have all confirmed that they're up for another term with us. As you might remember, Maddie's, that seat or sector seat is now a 3-year term, and you see that in the spreadsheet. So Maddie is with us for 2 more years. Teresa is checking with her job-alike colleagues, and we will know or her colleagues, we'll know in December on Teresa, looking at continuing on with us. And then the last piece is looking at who will be our executive committee slate. Me stepping into the role as chair, Dell as vice chair, Peter as treasurer, and Molly as secretary. In that, with that, Manuel, I'm kind of jumping all over. Manuel has agreed to flip-flop with me, and he'll chair the governance committee with Carlene and myself, if all agree. And then the finance being Peter, Rosalinda, and then Teresa once we know in December. And all of the committee members will serve with a 1-year term in terms of executive finance and government. a couple things to make note of is we still, if we approve this slate as it is, the slate is elected, there are a few seats that we need to fill right away in order to be compliant with our bylaws. And so we're going to be asking for your assistance in finding nominees for the following seats. We have the Grant County Chai. Dr. Tuggy is stepping away from us. So we have his seat is actually at large, but we do have Dr. Tuggy leaving us. We have our local elected official. If for some reason, and then we'll have, with that, we'll have just the minimum number of board members to be in compliance. So we are going to want to look at filling those at-large seats. Sorry, that was a little bit garbled.
Yeah, Linda, just to clarify, with our current slate approved, we'll be pretty much at that minimum. So
yes,
filling those other sector seats would put us above that on top of the at-large seats.
Thanks, John.
Linda, do we have a geographic representation issue? Is that part of the bylaws still? That we need to have a certain number from each county?
Yes.
So
And
are
we
we
have that.
targeting any county in particular? I mean, are we short or likely to be short somewhere?
I don't have that data right in front of me, John. No, I'm calling you on the spot. Do you have it off the top of your head?
You know, at current juncture, the percentage that was the lowest was in Okanagan County. Grant County was fine. Chelan Douglas was fine. It's always kind of a little bit of an adjusting target as a whole as we continue to recruit new board members, but Okanagan was an area where we could use additional recommendations. And the governance, the way that it's structured now is anyone who is interested can apply and would go through the governance committee as a screener prior to being brought to the board for a recommendation by the governance committee for approval. So there is an online process if anyone knows anyone who could be interested in being on our board. That was probably the one area where we were at risk. Otherwise, we generally have our general board makeup stays pretty diverse. The other comment I would say is our goal was to continue to increase non-traditional clinical providers too. So if it can be from the more social service, community-based side, that is always a benefit as a whole too.
Great, thank you.
Start thinking, Peter.
Yes.
This is Molly, and I know that the library system is going to be a big part of some of our work going forward as far as on the healthcare authorities. We don't have a representative from that sector. Okay.
Would be a good recommendation.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Actually, if a library board member is a representation, I actually filled that seat, but I agree you should get.
But I do too, yeah. I mean, they seem to be in it a lot next.
No, I agree. Staff would be great.
Yeah. As well as another tribal representative.
Absolutely.
We've talked about that often, whether it's an urban, someone from the Wenatchee, Chelan area, or Okanagan County.
And the other thing, the note that did get mentioned is for some of these open seats, if we don't fill them by December, that doesn't mean that we have to wait another year. The governance committee will work on that process throughout the year and continue to recruit. For December, it's just part of the annual meeting is getting the current slate of board members and officers out there within 30 days of that meeting. And so that was really one of the reasons to get that in front of everyone today.
And so we will be getting a handout or an exhibit showing existing board member and their sector, and then maybe some previous sectors that we had that we don't have any longer, and yeah, kind of try to capture as much as we can.
Linda, anything else that you can think of for an update?
Oh gosh, I don't think so, other than
You don't have to.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, Siri just says, I'm not sure I understand. Other than we have the application process, and then the piece around having those interested connecting with myself as well as John, or maybe it will be Manuel now, but between the two of us, in terms of questions and those things, but really be thinking about those positions, who would be people we'd want to reach out to recruit for that.
Perfect. Molly, I think it's back over to you.
Yes, and I think it's about time for a break.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and the meeting, call the meeting to order again. And we have a video. I'll let John and or Joey describe it. Welcome.
So I'm just going to call out, as we're talking about vital conditions and part of the work we do. Joey, as modest as he always is, had an opportunity to get recognized this weekend at the Women's Resource Center Gala, and they did a story on his personal life as well that we asked if we could share today. The disclaimer we'll put in is Joey was sick on Saturday, so this might actually be the first time he gets to fully see the video as well, because he wasn't able to make the gala. But we have an amazing team and an amazing staff, and any chance where you just get to highlight the people they are and the work that they do and their personal stories, it's just always great for the board to see a little bit more about the personal lives of each of our staff members. So Joey gave us the thumbs up to share the story that was shared at the Women's Resource Center, and so we wanted to play it as well for the board. So can everyone see the screen first off? Someone's going to have to tell me if you can't hear the sound, because that's the other blip that happens. And I'm going to click play.
Yeah, we can see it.
My junior year of high school is when things started really going downhill. I got introduced to drugs and alcohol. I dropped out my senior year. Fast forward to 34 years old, I am homeless and addicted to heroin and fentanyl and methamphetamines. I had completely given up on myself. I got arrested for burglary. My baby sister showed up at my next court date. Her telling me that she loved me put just enough hope in my pocket that when I went back to the jail cell, I wanted to fight for my life.
I wasn't even barely in middle school before I tried marijuana. I dropped out in 2008 after I had my daughter. I started using meth. She was 2.5 when I lost her. I told myself that anything I had to do to get my daughter, I would do. I was fresh in recovery, not even 60 days clean. I had to file for emergency temporary custody because I was homeless with my daughter. A friend of mine told me she was living at the Bruce and that I should apply. I called, I was accepted. It was unreal. We had a home. Like, we had a roof over our head and we were safe. I'm finally doing the right thing for once and being proud of myself for that. I met Joey by accident. Little did I know that that weird dude would become my best friend.
So she was living at the Bruce. It was 3-4 months into my recovery. She is in recovery herself. Hung out every day. After 6 months of us dating, she became pregnant.
This could be like a total disaster for our recovery and our relationship at that point.
Everything in my heart wanted to be a part of the pregnancy. It just made me want to strive more to work on myself and get to a place where I can be with my family.
Billy was working with the Women's Resource Center. He's like, hey, I think I can help you.
There's a program that could help us get into a place so we could be a family together.
This is the foundation of us building our life together as a family.
That need to be there for my family was fulfilled in an instant because of what Women's Resource Center and the Bruce was able to do for us.
Thank you for believing in a broken family that we could do this.
So as we transition to really talk about vital conditions and our partner work, just again, some of the amazing things that are going on in our own staff, and we're all really family here as well. We see ourselves just as work family, but we also care about each other as well. And so the more we understand where we all came from in our insights, the more we appreciate each other. So again, just a shout out to Joey and everything he does, the recognition he deserved at the Women's Resource Center Gala as well. He's been an amazing advocate for recovery and for all of these services in the community. So again, wanted to share that with the board and just say thank you again to Joey.
Thanks, John.
With that, I will turn it over to, I think, Mariah.
Thanks, John. I'm going to make this brief because after that touching video, it's hard to find my words. We love you, Joey. So this month we are focusing on, you'll see at the end of your packet, we've tried to highlight some of the vital conditions throughout the year. And so we wanted to include a couple of resources for both humane housing and the Thriving Natural World. So you can read those on your own if you would like. But humane housing is really the vital condition of having stable, safe places to live and living in diverse, vibrant communities that provide what we need to live full, productive lives. And I think that video kind of touched on how that Women's Resource Center and Bruce helped. So that is then the next one we wanted to highlight is the Thriving Natural World, and we have some partners here to speak that are directly working with that. So this is the vital condition of a healthy environment, about having clean, healthy environment for all, one that is free from environmental hazards, one that is resilient to future changes and threats, and one that fulfills our needs to connect with nature. So I am so excited that we have Matt Lyons and Lisa Foster here with us today from TREAD. They are our partner spotlight for this month, and they have prepared a presentation for us. And I'm going to turn it over to them to share. Thank you, Matt and Lisa, for joining us.
Oh, thanks. Wow, I only caught the end of that video, but congratulations, Joey, and to the board. This is amazing. Now, I don't really think I want to follow that up, but this is where we are on the agenda. So we'll do our best to compete. That's an amazing story. Lisa has a presentation that we can share. There we go. So I'm Matt Lyons. I'm the Executive Director of TREAD. And Lisa can introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Lisa Foster. I'm the Operations Director for TREAD. And can everybody see my presentation? Okay. All right. I'm going to, here we go. Take it over, Matt.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know what TREAD does, it's hard to describe because there's so many arms and tentacles of our work, but basically we are a collective impact organization that came out of a community need, an idea that really started back in 2014. We became an organization in 2018. And we bring all of the silos together for collective impact work that are associated with outdoor recreation. And that is pretty much everything from health and wellness to tourism to economic development to housing, you name it. Outdoor recreation somehow touches it. So we fight for groups to work collaboratively, and we look for ways to take down barriers and obstacles, whether that's policy change from some organizations or at the legislative level. We seek out opportunities to funding if that becomes the obstacle to a project. Here's our kind of year in review, some of the highlights, but mostly just want to let you know that we bring the groups together and we make sure that they do what they're supposed to do and hopefully encourage them to do more and take down barriers for those that need it. So super excited about all the work that we do collectively in the Valley. I want to jump to the next one. Let's do this.
So I'm going to dive into our Douglas County Outdoor Recreation Planning project that we've been working on throughout the year. And I want to thank you, the board, and also Mariah for working with us and helping us by funding the majority of the start of this project. We were then able to apply for an RCO grant for planning, and we got that accepted as well. So now we've been able to basically double our funding and do twice the amount of work. And we've now been able to expand this project, not just Douglas County, but to Chelan County as well for recreation planning. So we're super excited about that. The pictures that you see here are the 4 community events that we held across Douglas County in September and October. So we went up to Waterville and we met in their elementary school. We got to get to know their staff really quick because we needed help setting up and figuring out where to go. And they have a beautiful campus up there. And we also were able to meet at the Eastmont Parks building in their event center that I've never been in before. And it's a great community center if you ever have events that you need to have hosted. The third picture is me and Matt with the Smokey the Bear at the cafe event that was held a couple weeks ago, the Pachanga and Mercadito. It was incredibly fun. There was lots of dancing involved. And I got to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. And it was really cold at first. And so dancing was super great. The fourth picture there is up in the Waterville Library. If you have not been to the new Waterville Library, it is so cute. I want to just drive up there with my kids to hang out and work and also have a space for them to play. So we kind of got to go all the way across Douglas County up and down and see event spaces and get to know the community as well as the mayors in those areas as well. So we thank them for working with us and planning those events. Mayor Crawford wasn't able to make it, but she was helpful in planning that. We also had Mayor Jill Thompson and Mayor Conklin as well involved. So that was great. So to give you some highlights and updates where we are in our Douglas County Outdoor Recreation Planning grant, we did a survey at all 4 locations that we traveled to. And one of the questions that we asked was, how important is outdoor recreation to your overall quality of life? And 69% of those respondents said that it was very important. 21% that said it was important, and about 9% said it was somewhat important to their quality of life. Another question that we asked was, how would you rate outdoor recreation opportunities in Douglas County? and 39.4% said it was fair, and 30% said it was average. And so the third question that we asked is, if you had a magic wand, what would your number one wish be for the future of Douglas County and outdoor recreation? And so I'll just kind of go around that pie chart. We've got 24% wanting more hiking or running trails. About 20% wanted more maps and usage information. And to decode that usage information, everyone would love to know what's public and what's private in Douglas County. Like, where can they actually go and recreate? That was kind of one of the biggest questions that we kept getting asked over and over again, is figuring that out. 12% would like multi-use trail, more biking trails, natural habitat and educational opportunities. Water access came in at 7%, camping at 7% as well, and parks as well. So obviously you can't just build a bunch of recreation without funding. So one of the questions that we wanted to ask the community was, would you support recreational tourism in your community? And if yes, would you prefer planning outdoor recreation with tourism, tax dollars, user fees, or a combination of both? And honestly, I was shocked by the percentage of responders that said yes with a combination of both at 61%. And the amount of people that said no is only 8%. Only 8% of our respondents said absolutely not. And so I think that was important information. My next slide, and I'm going to apologize early on because I am not bilingual in Spanish and English. But we had our survey translated, and we had Spanish, predominantly Spanish speakers that wanted to complete the survey. And so they completed it in Spanish. And so I have the Douglas County Spanish survey, and survey in Spanish is encuesta. So the question, same 4 questions, I'm going to read them in English, but give you the Spanish response. So how important is outdoor recreation to your overall quality of life? 100% said muy importante. So 100% of our Spanish-speaking community in the Douglas County area said that outdoor recreation is incredibly important to their overall quality of life. The second question, how would you rate outdoor recreation opportunities in Douglas County? 50% said promedio, which means like moderate, and poor is pobre, which is 50%. And the 0% said that it was good. Our third question is, what is your number one wish for the future of Douglas County outdoor recreation? And this one, I broke it down by respondent. So we have 3 individuals that would like more parks. One would like more opportunities for games. One person would like more opportunities for sports and fields. One individual would like more trails for bikes, and one individual would like more opportunities for access to water. And that individual told me that a majority of the time when they get down to the water, they can't sit or have a picnic because there's dog poop everywhere at the access points of which they would like to be able to take their family. And then again, I was completely surprised by the answer to this question is, would you support recreational tourism in your community, and how would you pay for it? And 100% said yes in combination of user fees and tax dollars. So I'm going to pause there for a minute. That was a lot of data, a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions about the data associated with Douglas County?
Lisa, can I ask generally, what was maybe you shared this, what was like the geographic area of the respondents? Were most of them, were they pretty spread across Douglas? Was this like Waterville, East Wenatchee focused?
I do have the zip code data. I haven't analyzed it yet. I kind of just grabbed, because we're not done yet. The survey is still open all the way through January. So I just kind of pulled some highlight, but the majority, like I said, we did the on-site visits. And so we had about 17 respondents that lived in Waterville, 6 in Bridgeport. I'm spacing on the East Wenatchee. I think there was 19 in East Wenatchee, but they weren't all East Wenatchee residents. They were coming from Wenatchee and East Wenatchee, but they were answering based off of recreation in Douglas County. And then we had 1 respondent from Quincy.
Lisa, do swimming pools and swimming activities ever come up in these discussions? Or is that sort of out of
No,
for a lot
no,
of?
and that's because of the way that we had that introductory, we gave like a 5-minute introduction to what we were asking, what we were talking about, and defining that TRED doesn't do and doesn't have the reach of like pools and like ball fields.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question though.
Let me just add real quick that this has never been done before in Douglas County, especially county-wide. So, there's only 4 towns in Douglas County total. So not too hard to get to all of them. But the people that arrived, and especially the mayors, were so excited to finally just have someone talking about this, because they have ideas and they have needs, and they'd like to see more economic development for their rural communities. They'd like to see their constituents outside more and just know where they can and can't go even right now, let alone add more. And so, this comprehensive planning effort really sets the stage for more and more to happen after it, but without it, you can't get started. And so we're hopeful that this is just a baby step towards a brighter Douglas County future.
Yeah, and Wendy asked in the chat how many respondents so far, 51. And so we know that number sounds really small, but again, like what Matt's kind of saying, is it's the first time that Douglas County has really take this type of a recreational focus and asking, and also we're kind of in the middle because we still have it open all the way through January, so we're hoping to get a lot more.
And I always like to point out that the total number of people that voted for the mayor position in Rock Island, not either one, total number that voted for mayor, only 78. So we're doing pretty good.
That's great. Well, it's really great too that there's this focus on outdoor and activity, because that's really a health driver too, and that's really great to see such interest.
Yeah, and I think with thinking about TRAD as part of the thriving natural world and helping move our quality of life up. I can't remember of the statistics, but Sarah helped show me the data page on the new information through Thriving. And so I was looking at the comparison, and Matt, you know this number, I think, off the top of your head, but the amount of Chelan County public access versus Douglas County percent. And it's actually interesting that they are correlated with quality of life and the amount of access that one has to just stepping out their door to a green space versus asphalt.
Yeah, so Chelan County is about 80% publicly owned, and it's almost the exact opposite for Douglas County, only about 11% public.
Wow.
Very different counties, especially when it comes to outdoor rec opportunities too, right? So in Douglas County, the opportunities out there are very different than in Chelan County. So out in Douglas County, you have the geology and the coulees and the small creeks and the birding and the gravel roads for gravel biking and horseback riding, and much more motorized opportunity over there, where in Chelan County, it's much more lakes, trails, trees.
Yeah, so we're really excited about obviously getting more survey takers. So we have that on our website in both English and Spanish. And then we have reached out to the Douglas County PD, and we're going to do a mail insert. We just don't know which month it's going to come out to the 11,000 households. So that will go out too as well. So we're kind of at a little bit over midpoint, but we're excited to keep this project going. And then we are going to move to our Chelan Douglas Pathways project, which is one of our second projects that we're working on for the thriving natural world.
Yeah, so right up front, I'd just like to do a disclaimer about what I'm about to talk about. This is barely public information. What I mean by that is there's been an RFP that has gone out about 6 days ago for this project. So contractors from around the state and country have seen it. The reason why it's not common knowledge, I guess, locally and publicly, is because this idea has been tried before, And it didn't go well with a few of our private property owners, especially between Wenatchee and Leavenworth. And so the county has built up a relationship over time with these mostly agricultural private property owners, and has asked us to give them some time to follow up on some of the promises that they made to those growers, to meet with them individually if something were to change and if anything were to go to a next phase. So I'm telling you about this with the hope that we all know about this in January. So it's very exciting. The basic idea is to take the Apple Capitol Loop Trail and give it some spokes, and not small spokes. So think of the Apple Capitol Loop Trail as the hub, continuing the from Hydro Park to Rock Island to incorporate the town of Rock Island, from Apple Capitol Loop Trail to Malaga, and there's a few new parks that are being proposed out there, plus all the Microsoft moving out there, and then from Wenatchee through Cashmere to Leavenworth, and then all the way from Wenatchee to Manson. So it's a big idea. It's a big, audacious goal. But we've been working kind of in the wings on this for quite a while now, and had a public leadership team, is what we called it, that just wanted to see what it would take. And we met for a few months and eventually got enough momentum and enough funding to go after the planning portion of this. So $1.4 million has been set aside and or raised just to do the planning of this effort. That'll get announced more publicly, like I said, in January. But really the idea is to connect communities, for sure. That's probably the biggest part, connecting communities, but giving people alternate transportation. So those that can't afford maybe a brand new car, but can afford an electric bike. And then being able to access all of the services along the way. And then you have just the health and wellness benefit of having, separated paved pathways that do this. If you travel around the country and you visit some of those places that have this, it's pretty unique and it's pretty outstanding, and I wish we had it here. So that's kind of the big update. There is a leadership team. It's through the Chelan-Douglas Transportation Council. They're the ones who taking the lead on this project. Chelan County and then TRED are the three entities that sit on that team. There's technical advisory committees that are being formed, and think of that as like your engineers that work for either cities or counties and do most of that engineering work. There's going to be TRED-led community advisory committees, so that when we're speaking about a segment between Manson and Chelan, there's actually people from Manson and Chelan and stakeholders from Manson and Chelan on that committee. So each kind of segment will get broken down into their own advisory committees. And then we have the Pathways Leadership and Advocacy Work Group, and that's really an extension of the group that's been behind the scenes for about 6 months, becoming more formalized in their efforts, and think of them as like a parent organization kind of overseeing this work. So I'm going to leave it at that because I probably already shared too much. I know this is being recorded, but I would love the opportunity, if any of you are passionate about this work, reach out to us and we'll get you plugged into whichever committee makes the most sense, or whatever part of the effort makes the most sense for you. So very exciting, but baby stages, but the money for planning is there. So super excited.
Yeah, and the planning part, I think, is what to remember here is, like, we just went out and we're doing these events, and we've been working with Rock Island on their own individual recreation plan to figure out is there even a place for a pathway to connect hydro to Rock Island. And the community out there just really wanted a safe pathway to schools. They wanted a safe pathway to be able to get to a place to get fresh food, and a safe pathway to, one of them was to actually go have dinner with their family and have a drink after riding on the loop trail. And then one of the other ones was being able to have that recreational opportunity that Rock Island currently doesn't have, especially because it's one of the areas in Douglas County that is working on affordable housing as well. And so being able to build out those recreational opportunities alongside affordable housing, that's being put in as well. Okay, so we're now going to talk about our third project, which is because we were able to receive those RCO planning funds, we were able to take our funding from you, from the thriving community, that you guys were able to support us in taking your funding and then not just keep it in the Douglas County side of our region, but also take it over to Chelan. So we're able to keep the work going in our Upper Valley Sustainable Trails project. And I'll have Matt talk about the sensing document that we've just finished up.
Yeah, so the sensing document is basically what some people would call pre-NEPA, pre-SEPA work. It's much more than just scoping and planning. And for those of you who don't know, we use a lot of acronyms. So NEPA is the National Environmental Protection Act. It's the thing that the Forest Service has to follow when any kind of dirt disturbance happens in any way. And it is a daunting act to follow. I think the book is like this thick. And if the Forest Service were to take on this project themselves, I don't think they would. And if they did, it would take them about 10 years and cost over $1 million just for the NEPA part of it. Well, we figured out a way to go alongside the Forest Service with some consultants in our own fundraising to do that for half the amount of money and 2 to 3 years time. So what this document outlines is about 60 miles of new trail, 30 miles of either road to trail conversion, or there are existing user-built trails that are out there that are not part of the system. I should back up and give you the geographic area of this. So think of Leavenworth as the middle of this. The western boundary would be right along the Alpine Lakes Wilderness up the Icicle, cutting across over Tumwater Campground, over to Camp 12 Road, down the ridge line between the Chumstick and the Aniat, down to Cashmere, and then back up the pass Mountain Home area, making kind of a doghead shaped 200,000 acres. Most of that is Forest Service managed. And this is not to create something new. This is actually to catch up to the current amount of recreation that's happening right now. There is so much unsustainable recreation happening right now that's causing resource damage, parking issues with neighbors. The county gets so many phone calls, and then they say it's a Forest Service issue. The Forest Service says it's a county issue, and no one has the time or capacity to solve this. In addition to the fact that the Alpine Lakes Wilderness is being completely overrun with negative human behavior, we're hoping that this is even a conservation effort for the wilderness so that we give people what they need closer to town, because as you all know, Leavenworth is a big draw. And so the idea would be to keep people out of their cars, leave their hotels onto a paved path that leads to a dirt path that leads to a view or a vista or a recreational opportunity that's managed, that's in the system, that's sustainable, and gets them what they need while protecting other places. So we're just trying to catch up with this project, and we're super excited about it. Tons and tons of partnership here when it comes to implementation. But this is just one of those things, again, that TRED's pretty good at, that hasn't really been done before there was a TRED, which is all of the boring work that's really unfunded that it takes to do planning. And then once you have a plan, then you can proceed with implementation. So we really appreciate your flexibility with those funds when we received other funds from the state so that we could move this over to Chelan County.
And when I'm not sharing screen, I'm going to drop some links in for you to see the actual documents, and you can download them as well. So basically that ends our presentation about what we're currently doing. I'm going to leave the last few minutes for you to ask us specific questions. But yeah, we had a really good time traveling all the way up and down Douglas County, and we are really excited to continue that project, but then focus on both Chelan and Douglas County outdoor recreation.
Thank you for sharing, Matt and Lisa. We are funding them through the community-based equity initiatives funding, in case any board members were curious. So this opportunity really is about, equitable, all of these projects about equitable access for all. So any questions for Matt and Lisa?
Either means we talk too much or we're too boring.
No, it's just there's so much to say. I mean, this is really inspiring. I mean, having all those trails in place would be really, really amazing. It's impressive.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
guess one question I would have is if we think about, the vital conditions which we use, how hard is it to track outdoor activity in aggregate to know whether, how much people are using trails or, doing things? Is that an easy thing to estimate, or anything you get involved in TRED?
Yeah, it's difficult for sure. Anecdotally, easy. You can go to any trailhead on Mother's Day and when the wildflowers are blooming in the foothills and see 200 cars parked there and people, yelling at each other. But it takes a lot more, like more of a concrete study. So we have a lot of national and state studies that we can refer to and assume things. TRED actually put together an economic impact study back in 2018 that is the most recent. People take a lot of data from, online applications like Strava or Trailforks or All Trails and try to show that usage over time. But really, to do it right, you need to set up bodies at trailheads and laser trail counters, and you need to do that over a long period of time. And our land managers just don't have the capacity to spend money in that way right now.
Yeah, understandable.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. Really appreciate your time and your passion for the outdoors and your funding. I couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, thank you. It's great.
And in the chat, I did drop our website, my email, if you want to reach out to me directly. And then I included our Douglas County link with both surveys in English and Spanish. And then also that fencing document that Matt was talking about for the Upper Valley.
It's amazing to see how TRED is able really to bring partners together in this space and do this work. And it's a unique group of partners.
Yeah, you're all invited to our next one. We have a big roundtable coming up on the 15th, and that will be at Pybus from 9 to 12. Mariah definitely attends, I think a few others, but you'll see 50 different organizations represented in the same room. And that goes from land managers to outdoor rec groups that you might think of, like Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance and the Leavenworth Mountain Association, but it extends into municipalities and county commissioners and port commissioners and people who, are decision makers or elected officials, and bringing all those silos together into one place. It works. Who knew it would work? Because it wasn't working before when everybody was silent. So we're super excited to be a convener for sure.
And that was one of the things I was thinking is that, I see wonderful trails, I see trail systems and all these opportunities for outdoor recreation. And I never really knew who did it and all the players that come into place. So this is exciting for me. I know I'm in Grand Coulee area, and we have a big project that, along Banks Lake and things. And it's just kind of been on the idea platform forever and never jumped off. So it's exciting to see you guys actually doing it and putting in that hard work. I like that.
Yeah, and Caroline just said that TRED came out of the Our Valley, Our Future planning, and that's correct.
Yeah.
So the very first Our Valley, Our Future plan, I believe it only had 6 game changers, and then some type of outdoor rec authority was kind of highlighted as a game changer that needed to happen. And so that's when we decided, okay, it's time. We're making it happen, and we called it TRED.
And I bet the West Side is so jealous of this work too.
Well, they keep asking Lisa to come over there and fix them, and I keep saying, no, she's too important for me.
Right.
She's really the brains behind all of this.
Yeah. She's come through Grand Coulee first. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell everybody that we're not going to franchise. I don't want to be a statewide director. I just want to make these 2 counties amazing. Maybe 3 counties, maybe 4.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for your time. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That is putting us through the agenda. I did let you all know at the beginning at public comment if there was anyone who had anything they wanted to add for the record. Now would be the time that you could raise your hand and do that. But if there is none, I have a couple of announcements. One, the executive committee is very close to finalizing the executive director annual review. And so we will be sending that out for everyone's review as well. So we have maybe 1-2 more meetings on that. And then December 4th is our next meeting. So I want to get that, to be sure you get that on your calendar.
Molly, can I have 2 other things?
Do it.
Just as an FYI for all, we're going to send resolution number 7 out for DocuSign. So keep an eye out in your email boxes for that. And I know we've talked in the exec committee, Molly, about changing the time for the board meetings next year to at least a later time, either starting at 2 or 3 o'clock. So we'll send something out to gain board input on that. But we're hoping to flex a little bit to allow individuals who can't take a full afternoon off on a Monday to be able to attend a board meeting. But I don't know that we're going to do it in the evening either. So we'll gain some board level input on that for next year. And Teresa has her.
Okay, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you. Along those same lines, John, if we could look at our retreats. I know we've been having them on Fridays and that can be really challenging. I don't mind them being bumped up to a weekend like a Monday where we already have a time slot. So since we're checking, if the pulse of the group is still Fridays, I will be there.
Okay.
We appreciate that, Teresa.
Anyone else have any thoughts? Last moment. All right. Well, everyone, this is Native American Month. I want you all to have a safe and happy Thanksgiving holiday, if that's what you do. Veterans Day is coming up, so it's just, we're starting holiday season. Everyone have a great rest of your day, and I adjourn the meeting at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.